Well, this is the official welcome to everybody who's here live on the call. Thank you for being here on Saturday morning for this side of the world anyway. Lovely to see so many of you. So this is what we've called the virtual Viva Breakout sessions. So it's kind of a taster, a preview of what's going to be happening at the Viva event. Just to ask those of you in the call, can you mute?
I could, but I think people mute themselves. And
could you mute yourself because there's some background noise coming through, just so that we can hear each other. Thank you very much. So virtual Viva Breakout session number 1 with the delightful Dave Kibbe and the delightful Ian Watson, who has just explained to us, you can't see his face at the moment. He's on is it Dartmoor? Dartmoor, yeah. That's a prison, isn't it?
Couple associations.
You're not there, though, are you, Ian? That's not why you're hiding.
I'm doing time.
Doing time. So he can't put his video on because then we won't be able to hear him because the bandwidth just won't take it. But he's here with us. We're really happy to have him. So Dave and Ian are going to be speakers for us at the Viva event in November in Spain, which we're really, really excited about to have them both with us. So here they are. They're donating their time for us this morning to give you all a taste of what they'll be sharing or what could happen at Viva. So we've chosen a topic that has come up more than once for me, particularly with clients, and I've heard it many times from other people, and that's around this sense of, we know in the world of the principles, when we're sharing the principles, as Sid said, what you're looking for is a feeling. And so as principle practitioners, people are aware that it's in the feeling when we're in the right place, when we're telling our story, for example, and we're coming from the right place, clients or people pick up on that feeling. And so the question comes up, well, how can I stay in that feeling so that my clients can get the most out of a session? And that's really the topic of this morning's discussion, conversation. And the kind of format that we thought would work nicely, and is probably the format we'll use at Viva as well, is that the speakers, the presenters will kick us off with their thoughts on the subject. And then we'll open it up for discussion, for conversation. You guys that are here can ask questions, or we'll just let's be in the flow of what comes up. We're not going to plan it too much, but that's kind of a loose structure at the moment. So I don't know. We haven't even got as far as who's kicking us off, Dave or Ian. So, which of you would like to go first, or do you want to sort of tag team? Entirely up to you. I'm just going to hand the mic over to the both of you.
You go ahead, Dave.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. I could feel that coming. It's really funny because obviously we can't see Ian, so
no.
I can't get any visual cues about where he is, but I could feel him there. Well, I think first of all, it's a real pleasure to be here. So thank you to Sue and Sheila and Mark for providing this framework or this structure and the event and all of this stuff. I think it's massively cool. And when I first got the email about it, I think I typed back yes before I'd finished reading any of it. It was a real no-brainer, like this morning. And it's really nice looking around and seeing some people that I know and some people that I don't know. And I don't know Ian. Ian, I don't think we've ever spoken. So there's a massive bunch of not known on the call this morning, and that's lovely. That's really nice. So something that occurred to me just while you were, Sheila, while you were doing the intro there was this issue of how do we stay in the feeling. And I guess what occurred to me is that I'm never not in the feeling, really. So it's more of a question of what's going on when I think I'm not where I really am. It's that for me. Because, a lot of how we learn, or I think how we learn as humans, is through modeling. And so it's pretty normal to look at our teachers or our guides or people who are just so phenomenally grounded and go, well, how are they doing that then? How does that work? How could I have that? But there's an innocence in that, and there's a truth in that, and there's a misdirection in that as well. Because, you know, it's all here. I mean, I can hear birds tweeting in the background on somebody's thing, you know. So there's so much here that we don't have a sense of. I know Ian's here. I can feel him, but I can't see him. But the more I look in this direction, and even that's a misdirection in a sense, but it's a well-used phrase. So the more I'm aware of what's already here before I put my spin on it, the illusionary me, the Dave Kibbe that typed his name in the box, all that. The more I'm aware of the nature of the system, or the nature of thought, or the nature of mind or consciousness, the more it just seems to clear up this need to be somewhere else other than where I really am in the moment. So that's what came to me first of all, was like, you don't want to start chasing this. You don't want this to become the new Achilles on the tick list of I'll be better when. And I think that's why for so many of us, things like our stories, you know, this natural capacity for anchoring that exists in the human psyche, that's what appears to take us there. You know, take us there. I go back to, like, one of the stories I tell is about when I first twigged that something big was going to change for me, leaving a very well-paid job, staring out of a window and thinking, I don't feel very fulfilled with this. I don't know why that is. That doesn't make much sense. I thought I was doing all the things that people said would make me feel fulfilled. So why am I not fulfilled? What's that? And there was a lot of other things going on. You know, I'm going to get edited highlights of the story in the moment. But there was something in that. There's something in all of us that's shining away, even when it looks really dark. And it's beautiful to know that, and to know that it doesn't much matter what the Dave is doing. That isn't going to go anywhere. And that's one of the things I love about. I had a dream for many years that I would be able to sell or share or do like one thing. You know, like there'd just be one thing I could talk about, and it would be very cool and very simple and very straightforward for people to go, yeah, I'd like to hear more about that, or no, go away, you loopstick, you know. And I wasn't too hung up on which it was. And then I stumbled across the principles, and it's like, oh, this is the thing, right? This is it. This is gonna help me on this evolutionary journey. This is gonna guide me home again. This is gonna steer me through lots of things that I thought were true. Lots of stuff that looked really real and had fantastic meaning. And I'm really thankful for all of that. But this is going to take me to where I already am before I think I'm not. And so that's like my launch pad for the feeling is you want to get a feel for it's where you already are, and then start to see why you think you're not. And there's massive freedom in that for me, because it means that when I'm working with people, or like showing up on a call here with people I don't know, or co-hosting with a guy who's invisible that I don't know, there's nothing really, there's no pressure to go anywhere, do anything, or get anything right. Because I can't break the system any more than I could break gravity, or even, you know, I could say some stuff that's wrong about gravity, but when you drop your keys, you're going to witness it. I could say some stuff that's wrong about mind, consciousness, and thought, but we're all experiencing it all of the time. It's the essence. So it doesn't much matter if I get it wrong, really. And that's comforting, isn't it? Your turn, Ian. Tag.
Thank you, Dave. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, lovely.
All right, good. I'm glad the sound's working at least. Yeah, apologies for being invisible. I'm not particularly shy, so it's not that I'm hiding. It's just that it's going to crash the system. I liked what you said there, Dave, about how it's the kind of fact that it's ever present, and it's only our perspective at the time that makes it appear to be missing or lacking. And what occurred to me when I read this, when I heard this kind of question posed was, it's so easy to hear that question as pointing to a certain kind of feeling that's the right one, or the desirable one, or the necessary one, which, as Dave pointed out, immediately becomes then another, what the Buddhists call a gaining idea. You know, it's another thing that I need to achieve in order to do good work, in order to help people, in order to communicate the principles effectively. I'm going to have to make sure I get this feeling sorted out first. And of course, there's an inherent trap in that, because what we're doing then is we're putting thought on, well, what feeling am I in, and how am I doing, and is it good enough, and is it the right one, which is guaranteed to send us into a feeling state which something other than the one that we would like to be in. So it's one of those lovely little, it's almost like a Zen koan kind of thing, where what I started to see around this was that I've had experiences where I've turned up to work, whether it's working with a group or one-to-one, and I've not been in a particularly nice feeling when I've gone into the office or into the classroom situation. I've been carrying something in my own head that I'm still thinking about, and I'm a bit anxious about it, or I'm just not present in the moment that I'm about to start. And sometimes, even when I've been talking to people, I've still had that running in the background. And my own subjective opinion would have been, I wasn't in a good place that day. You know, I probably wasn't on good form. I probably wasn't doing a very good job. And then lo and behold, very often to my surprise, people have told me that was the best session that they ever had. Yeah. Or what I just said was just absolutely the right thing. It was exactly what they needed to hear today. And I'm kind of scratching my head thinking, well, how does this work? You know, because by my yardstick, I must have been way off base today, because I didn't feel like I was in the best place. And yet it didn't seem to matter. So that, to me, it kind of reveals the inherent misleading idea that we can have, that there's a certain particular way that we have to feel. And the way that I tend to approach this now, rather than trying to be in a particular feeling, what I would look for more is, how present am I? I tend to think of it more in terms of presence rather than a particular quality of feeling. Because I've noticed that I can, for example, I can be feeling a bit anxious, or I can be feeling anything really. But if I'm present to it, it doesn't matter. And to me, that's the distinction that I found helpful for myself. And she said, well, okay, so how do I get to be present? You know, you could come up with that as a follow-up question. And again, it's not anything that we do. For me, it's just a question of knowing where your experience comes from as a kind of background to everything else. And the degree to which we know that, the degree to which we know that is the degree to which we can be in any feeling and still be present. And for me, that really takes the pressure off, because it allows you to be human. You know, it allows you to have your off days. It allows you to show up as you are in the moment. And I don't know about you, but you know, I've got kids, I've got things going on. Sometimes when I go lurching into my work, I've still got things going on which are unfinished from, you know, dropping the kids off and this kind of thing. I'm still carrying some of that with me momentarily, but it doesn't have to bother me. it can just be background noise. It's not something that I have to put myself into this perfect meditation state before I can function. That to me has been my learning, that I don't have to wait until I feel a particular way. If I know that what I'm feeling in any particular moment is just a reflection of the thinking that's running through my system in that moment, then what's the big deal? You know, I don't have to do anything with that. I know it's self-correcting. I know it's temporary, and I can just let that be background noise. In the same way as, you know, as we started the call, there was it birds tweeting or some other kind of background noise? We could put our attention on that, or we can let it be background noise. So for me, it's the same with whatever feeling is showing up. If we know where it's coming from, we let it be background noise. It doesn't have to be.
We're losing you, Ian, or we've lost you. When you're back. Sorry,
we can still be present in the midst. And what I find is that. Okay, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What the other nice thing about this is that as soon as we start to share what we know and to speak authentically from what we know and to point people back to what they know but may have lost sight of it temporarily, that conversation itself tends to lead us in the direction of being present also, which is great, because the very work that we get paid to do is to me is actually the most helpful thing in terms of helping us to be present in the midst of what's going on, whatever's going on for us. So we get these daily reminders of when we're losing our sense of connection, or whatever you want to call it. It becomes very visible to us just because of the nature of the work that we're doing. And it's not that we ever get to a point where it doesn't happen. I feel that we just increasingly get to a place where we're less bothered by the fact that it's happening all the time. So we don't make an issue out of it. So for me, I am a bit wary nowadays of telling people, you know, it's all in the feeling, because they tend to hear that as being, well, what kind of feeling? You know, there's a particular feeling that is the desirable one. So to be honest, I don't use that terminology very often. Even though I know there's a truth in it, I find that, again, we're up against the limitations of language. People often mishear it as meaning that they've got to be feeling a particular way in order to be able to share what they know. And in my experience, that's absolutely not true. You can be in the middle of a headstorm, but if you connect with what you know to be true and you start sharing from that place, that headstorm will dissipate in a second. You know, it'll just be background, it'll be gone, it won't matter. Because by being present, you are, as Sid used to say, you are one thought away from everything you could ever need. So we can drop into that feeling any moment, and we can pop out of it again in the next moment, but it's still there. As Dave was saying, it's still there. And it's always accessible to us. It's not anything that we can ever lose connection to. Even the idea of connection is misleading, because it implies that we can lose it. It's an always-on system. So for me, there's been a kind of relaxation around that whole idea, and that idea that we need to get ourselves into a certain state of being. I'm really seeing more and more that we don't. It doesn't matter. You show up with your human. Sorry, was that someone asking something, or just?
No, I think it's just somebody's popped on without being muted.
Okay. All right. That's really all. I think that's all that I would say as a starting point. I don't know if anybody would like to share their own experience, or if you want to ask anything of Dave or myself, we can take it a bit further.
Ian, can I add one thing before, while people perhaps have a second to gather their questions, because I'm sure there's going to be some questions. I loved so much of what you said, and I loved when you talked about being present, and the staying with the feeling. I watch, and I got caught in that trap for a while of it becoming a thing to do. Oh, okay, so I need to I need to be as meditative as Keith Blevins in order to be as effective as Keith Blevins. And then the strange thing is I remember the first time I ever sat in a training room with Keith, and at this point I was running at 2 million miles an hour and not okay with it. And somebody needs to go on mute because you've got
I'm trying to do it now. Hang on.
Serena needs to.
Yeah. Okay. It won't work.
Cool.
I can't mute. Sorry.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Okay.
So I remember listening to Keith, thinking, "Oh, would you speed up?"
Yeah.
And then I went on a retreat with him, and Valda Monroe, who was coming in virtually from the US back in February, and I remember thinking, this guy isn't slow. That's strange. He must have sped up. Yeah, that must be what it is. And I suddenly thought, oh no, it was never that. It was something else going on. And that's when you're, as humans, it strikes me we have this massive spectrum. I don't know whether you can see my hands doing that, like of emotional potential. You've only got to look at a baby. I was coaching a head teacher yesterday morning, and we were looking at their school improvement plan. And before we started to get into the hows and the whats and the whys and stuff, and I really wanted her to look at what the implications are for understanding the default setting of a young human are before we start piling how we're going to teach them on top of it. Yeah, because there's a load of presuppositions around how we structure school and education. And for those who don't know me, I was a school teacher for 10 years before I sold my soul and went into commerce. So I'm a massive fan of education and lifelong learning and whatever, but I can just see that teachers are trying to take a whole load of responsibility for stuff that's already built in. And that causes stress. If all of a sudden I said to everybody, okay, we're gonna just break for a second and we're gonna do an exercise on how to digest your food. Right. So I want everybody to focus inwards and really, really think about the chemicals that you're going to produce. And so you'd all be sitting there looking at me going, what? You're a nutcase. And you might be doing that anyway. That's cool. But it'd be like, now we know you're a nutcase. We can't do that. Or if anybody's got a little cut or something on their skin, I'd say, okay, now we're going to do a healing scab exercise. So everybody look and congeal. We know all that's rubbish, but because we have such a tiny understanding of really what's on offer here. And that's what I love about Viva, and it's about what's on offer in life. It's about what happens when you start to see the beauty of the design, about the system that's already at work before you think you need to do anything. But most of us have grown up thinking there's a whole load of stuff to do. We need to motivate ourselves. We need to work hard. We need to strive. All this language around. And I was talking about a baby, wasn't it? So I'm lost in my own metaphors. But yeah, so I was coaching this head teacher, and suddenly a colleague who was on maternity leave came in, and she brought in her baby, who was, I don't know, 6-8 weeks old. And I said, look at her and tell me how much resilience training a human needs at default setting. Look at how she's learning and taking stuff from the environment. So how much do you need to motivate her? And it completely changed the session because the woman could really see what I was pointing at. She could see its presence. And so if you can see or deepen your seeing or get a sense of what we're pointing at, that it's all there for you, Michael Neal's good at describing this. You can strike it off your to-do list. Make sure I'm in a good feeling. That's on my to don't bother with list. Any more than make sure my scab heals. That's on my to don't bother with list. Wisdom might tell me to put something over the surface of it to look after it. It might do that. Just as when you know, Ian was saying about having a family. We have 2 young boys, one's 9, one's 11. And wisdom occasionally tells me to go and stomp around the garage rather than blow my top at them. You know, so but we've got so many rules on what we think is okay for us to do. And a lot of that is a fundamental misunderstanding about the principles or the nature of who we are. You know, so when we say I am, what is it we mean by that? And mostly we mean personality, mind, body. That's who I am. Well, it's not, because that changes, you know. I woke up in a very different state from the state I'm in now. I'm sure it'll be different again in a moment's time or an hour's time, but something in me is aware of all of that shift, which means I can't be the shift or I wouldn't be aware of it. So something comes before all of this. And that's, I can't even say there's something settling about that. I used to say that, and I can't say that because something's seeing settling. So that's what we are. That's getting, and it's not that either, but it's getting closer. Do you see what I mean? We're getting nearer to see that. And it's a ridiculous notion. I will shut up in a second, or just make me shut up, whatever. But it's a ridiculous notion. One of my friends said to me the other day, he said, so hang on, people pay you to sit in a room, not worry about how you feel or whatever you talk about, and they go away seeing the world differently. And I said, yeah. He said, well, how do I learn to do that then? That sounds really good. So, but there's an important thing there, because this I see for practitioners a lot. It's really easy to ignore the value in that. But I can tell you, I can remember this really clearly, and I bet each one of you can, that when you weren't seeing it, when you didn't know about the principles, and consequently all the stuff that you were trying to handle to get this good feeling, which is kind of what we're all about, because consciousness rises, blah, 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 blah. I'd have given anything, literally. If somebody had sat down with me and said, you give me the price of a small car, but I'll tell you what's going on here, I'd have gone, okay. In fact, I think I did, in fairness, and several cars since, so that it's true. I was quite willing to do that, because it was literally making my life hell, or I was making my life hell, but I couldn't see that. To me, it was commerce, my colleagues, even my moods. I thought my moods were outside of me. That makes sense. I didn't think it was okay to be a bit of a moody git. I'm a bit of a moody git. It's true. Until it's not, you know? And so it's always something else, something else, something else. But when you really settle into the breadth and the color, the viva of being a human, that's so exciting. I'm doing shit and having fun in ways that I never thought would be possible for someone like me. You know, I remember some people buying me a little doll, a Dave doll once, you know, and it was like, oh, that's me. And that's what it's like for us. We've got this character that we think we are, with a lot of rules around that, based around circumstance, upbringing, DNA, stuff. Harmless rubbish, all of it. So we don't want to worry about it too much. Right, shush.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Ian. So the floor is open.
Can I just add one thing briefly?
Of course.
That's just occurred to me as Dave was talking there, and that, see, I noticed that as I was really listening to Dave, I noticed how still, how quiet I got. And then I had the thought, well, that I could easily say that's the feeling, you know. Thanks, Dave. I'm in the feeling now. and I could easily attribute that to you. You know, you obviously were speaking from a true place, let's say, and so I could give you the credit for helping me to access that feeling. But another way of looking at that would be just to realize, actually, no, it was my listening. It was the quality of my listening that helped me to touch that quiet place. And to me, that there is a practical thing there that's helpful for people to see, is that when we really listen to someone else, when we really, again, be present to what someone else is bringing, then you can't do that and simultaneously be listening to the noise in your own head. It's an either or.
Yeah.
So if you're getting concerned about, how am I coming across? Am I in a good enough feeling? How am I doing? You're not really listening to the other person. You can't really be present to someone else at the same time as be giving attention to your own self-conscious thinking. So to me, that's a helpful thing just to notice. If there's someone with you and you're feeling, let's say, stressed or anxious, that in itself is an indication that the quality of your listening is, let's say, it's gone down or it's been misdirected. You're listening to something that's made up within your own thought system at that moment. And as soon as you see that, go back to listening. You've got a real human being here. You could listen to them. It might be more interesting. Chances are they would be. Even if they don't say anything, you can listen. You can listen to the quality of their presence. It's like Dave was saying. He says, "I can't see Ian, but I can feel that he's here." It's like that kind of opening yourself to a receptive mode to whoever's there with you. And so again, one of the beautiful things about this work for me is that the very act of performing the function that we do as facilitators, it constantly helps to redirect us back to a place of greater presence within ourselves. It's like getting paid to do your spiritual practice.
That's so true.
It's the best thing, So I just wanted to add that as a little practical helper.
I love that. Yeah, go on then, Dave.
Sorry. No. I promise this is going to be short, but I love what Ian said there, and in the same way that he could have attributed his feeling as being coming from me, I could hear his thanks, and I've done this in the past, and go, oh, that's how you do it. Oh, okay. And that's what I meant about modeling. Oh, okay. Well, next time I'm with a client, I'll do that then. Cool. And that might be what's needed, but it might not. And so that willingness to be open to what appears in the moment and be present with that. I think that's really when people say stay with the feeling, that, that's really what they're pointing at for us.
That's it. You nailed it, Dave.
Yeah. It's that.
JD then.
Yeah, see you in Spain.
Well, I was thinking as well that this isn't just about people asking questions. It's also about people sharing what their experience has been, what their thinking has been around this. Because this, the whole thing about Viva is that, I'll speak for my take on it, is that we just all turn up in the same space with an open heart and an open mind, because we know that each of us brings an element that otherwise would be missing. So on this call, what I was really hoping is people don't think that there is, and I know that Ian and Dave won't mishear this, but I love listening. I just love listening, and it's been the thing I think that has brought most change and value to my life, because I didn't know how little listening I did in my life. I didn't have any appreciation of that whatsoever. So in a way, it's been quite a lot of unlearning and learning all in the same time. So on this call, I was thinking, let's just all pitch in if we want to. It's not, you don't have to have a deeper, meaningful question, but you might have a little piece to share, or a question, or sharing it. It doesn't matter. There are no rules in a way. I just love the idea that we're just having a conversation, the conversations in itself, we don't know what the potential for that is. We can guess, and I'm pretty optimistic because conversations have become new for me because I listen. Wow. Apologies to anybody I ever used to talk to, really. God, that's a long list. So if you want to say something, obviously I can unmute you, but you can unmute yourselves if you know how to. If you don't, then just raise your hand and I'll unmute you. But if somebody wants to pop up and say something, that'd be great.
Hi, I'd just like to say, listening to Ian and Dave there, and the effect they were having on each other, that effect has spread to me as well, and I should imagine to some of the other participants here. And to me, what I've loved about this, I'm not actually a facilitator, I'm just very interested in the three principles and the feeling and truth and that wonderful wisdom inside. And to me, the beauty, I've been to 2 meetings in Colchester. I went to Spain earlier in the year where there were lots of meetings going on, lots of people, many of yourselves. And I also went to Tiffin for 3 days, and just being in the presence of people like yourselves, even if you don't say anything, it's listening, you're talking as well, but that feeling that you actually get, just sitting here again this morning now, it's opened up everything. It's immediately, just listening to me and Dave talking, it's just immediately opened me up completely and helped me, as it did to Ian, helped me into that place of such wisdom again. And now I think that's why Viva is such a very special event, because just to be there and to be participating in some way and surrounded by so many people with open hearts and with that feeling, you have to absorb. If you're in that situation, you will absorb that feeling as well. And that can only help your own well-being and your own deeper understanding of all of this. I just want to say I think that is very important, the feeling that we all get from this, regardless of questions about what does consciousness mean and things like that. It's just the absolute feeling and living in that moment, and really drop out of that moment, but just if you surround yourself with people like yourselves, then it immediately takes me back to that. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I think that's a wonderful thing about Viva and all such events. So I think I wanted to say just that feeling has really affected me. How does that affect everybody else? I don't know. Never mind. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. Okay, so Jill, I'm just going to unmute Jill so we can hear from you. Good morning.
Morning, everybody. I was just reminded when Dave was talking just then about every session being different and just being there and turning up and seeing what occurs. And if I can just quickly share something that happened with me and a client. We'd worked together before, so no like and trust was there, if you like. And I work around bereavement. And there was something that he felt unfinished for him with somebody that had passed a long time ago. And so we started the session, and I just asked him, I can't tell you what the question was, but I asked him a question. And it was along the lines of, and it was kind of like, this is what occurred in the moment. I just said, so if you were sitting opposite this person at dinner, what would you say to them? And I spent the rest of the session watching him. He turned away from me. He turned to what was possibly an empty chair. He didn't speak, but he was going, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We sat for, 40 minutes. And then that conversation was obviously finished, and he turned back and we just had a little quick conversation. And he said, thank you. I said, I didn't do anything. I was just, if you like, holding the space was perhaps the only thing I did. And to me, that was just a beautiful example of trusting the process, trusting that it's always okay, and you don't even have to talk. Just do what occurred in the moment. And that was hugely cathartic for that person. And I would never have gone into a session thinking, well, now I'm going to sit and do nothing. If you like, do. No, it doesn't work like that. So I just loved that you said that, Dave. And thank you.
Oh, that's lovely, Gillian. Made me feel very sad for a moment, which is fine. Okay.
Sue, can I just speak to something that Trevor said? Because there was something he said that I really loved. There was lots you said, Trevor, that I really loved, but there was one thing you were talking about. You were talking about the sheer joy of seminars or coming together with people, and I think that's so true. I think live events are this. I mean, this is magical, isn't it? This the way we can all come together in this virtual space and be present and not see each other yet know we're there. It's a wondrous reflection of what's already built into the system. But I love the live space. One of many reasons I'm looking forward to meeting everybody like in the flesh in November. But one of the things that's really opened up for me, and again, this might sound small, but for me it's big, is seeing each meeting with any group of people in any context like a seminar, so that I don't have to wait to get my fix, because the things that we're experiencing in a seminar or like-minded people, when you start to slow all of that down and just inquire and look at each bit of it slightly, you'll start to see that it's already there. And that was, I remember some stories on one of Sid's recordings about, he says you'll find it in the greengrocer or whatever, and I didn't really get any of that. But then I was, as how you see yourself shifts, so how you see the world shifts. And so simple things like going to the supermarket, like fighting for a car parking space in London, all the kind of the day-to-day stuff of life, that's been massive magical shift for me, is seeing the substance that we assume only exists in certain contexts, seeing it abundantly in everyday life. And that's magical. Again, that was never on my list of things that I thought were going to be open and available. That I love getting together with people who really want to talk about it and see it and all of that. That's so special. But then to see it in action, in play, in the ordinary world, if you like, where people are perhaps not aware of what's going on, and that's fine. But to still see it, that's great. Like that. So thank you for pointing that, Trevor. I brought it into my awareness.
When I was listening to you, Dave, and also pointed there by Trevor, it's like it's an uncompartmentalizing of life. And I think that the more that I began to see that I not only had I got overarching rules, but there were subsections and subsections of subsections for rules in particular things. So, and we talked about this a bit on some of the work I've done with Sheila about how natural a conversation is until we think it's a particular conversation. And then the kind of naturalness falls away, and we're looking for the right thing to say. We're looking for the, that magical editor that's going to, just ensure that we don't say something wrong. And that's when I think we're just into our heads quite a lot, and we're back into a rule book we don't even know we're carrying, and we're playing. And when you said right at the beginning, it's the Dave, I'm going to have to really work hard on not calling you the Dave now. And I'm the Sue, because it is true, isn't it? Like we just, I over the years have begun to realise who the Sue had become. And of course the Sue's still here, and but the Sue's changed a lot. But the magic is seeing that there is still the Sue there, and that's fine too. And on the staying in that feeling thing is, I loved what both of you said about that. And on a really sort of, I suppose, practical experience level, is that what I've come to so appreciate is how much it's never a one-way thing. And when I'm working, perhaps mentoring and thinking about some of the young people, I'm so much more aware now of when I just get tempted out of just being in that lovely connection and into, but they really need to hear this. I think I should say that because, I can see the bigger picture, and it is so tempting in that moment. But what helps is it doesn't feel so nice. It takes me away from where I want to be, and it happens. But the recovery period seems to be really quite quick, and the grace with which I can actually say to somebody now, you know what, I went off a bit on one, and I don't really think that was helpful to you, and it certainly wasn't helpful to me, or whatever else comes to mind. But in the past, I'd have just got really into my thinking about, I didn't do that really well. Just down all the rabbit holes that can appear when you get into thinking the background noise is the noise to listen to. And it isn't. I love that, the idea of the background noise. You're not trying to get rid of it. You're just trying to see that's what it is. And therefore, how much attention do we give to background noise? When I'm speaking to somebody in a crowded room, I'm not really trying hard to get rid of all the other people in the room. You just need to. And naturally we do that. I mean, we know that our hearing is so sharp. It's so, it has its own automation, if you like. The stuff around us will fade out if we don't tell our ears, it's a problem. Let's try and do something about it. So that the automation within our system is just phenomenal. Whether it's the cut, as you were saying, Dave, or, whatever, it is phenomenal. So the Dave, well done. You're giving me a new... I can't wait to go out there and say hi to Pete. Because he won't know, will he?
It's funny, isn't it, that, when we're talking, you can only talk as the pure self, if you like. There's no one else in here pulling the strings or anything. This is it. But because we have free mind, free will, we have the commentator running in the background. Now, the commentator can't work at the speed of the self, because the self needs to form something for the commentator to commentate on. So it's time lapse. Yeah. So I can sit here and say anything to you that comes, and I catch myself, and you hear people saying, I don't know where that came from. And it's like, well, who is it you think doesn't know what came from where? You can really go down the rabbit hole. It's like, this is it. What you're hearing is me, but what I'm hearing is my inner critic, my misuse of these gifts, of the monitor of me. Oh, should I have said that? Oh, what did Holly do on the camera then when I said that? Did she say, oh no, is that, oh no, I've disenfranchised Holly, I've lost it, and now I'm here. But I can't speak from here. It just looks that way. I can only speak as myself. And so, to me, this is such a powerful self-inquiry to realize that even when you go, oh, I shouldn't have said that. That was terrible. Oh goodness, that can never be true. That's a posthumous analysis by a fragile interpretation of the most powerful thing on the planet, which is your spirit. Your commentator isn't your spirit. It's your semblance, reconstruction out of the moment of what occurred from spirit in the moment. It wouldn't possibly know. Bless it. You couldn't possibly have any clue whether, and so there's such vast freedom in that to play. And the more, see, even things like the more I see that, who the hell is the I in that? The more I see that, I am that. I'm the one saying that. How can there be anyone else? But because of this gift, which we use in this weird way, it looks like there's someone else to appease. The more I realize that, well, I am realizing it. I am realization. I'm the one talking to you here. Look, there's no one else. And there's I can't even say there's huge freedom in that, because that doesn't make any sense. Freedom from what? Freedom from, it just is. And so when I hear people now saying, you know, here, listen back to Sid, it's the isness. Well, it is. When you open this and speak forth and create the world, you're the creator. You're God in the moment incarnate, spirit coming into form, and it's power beyond measure. And after that is just some form of analytical reflection using these tools that we're gifted with. But in that moment, you will never know. Or rather, in that moment, you knew and you brought forth what you needed to bring forth. Only analysis, which doesn't come, though it does, in the same way, will try and tell you whether you were right or wrong. You know, so on occasions, I've been really firm with clients, you know, possibly even what would be classed as harsh. And instantly my analysis goes, oh, you shouldn't say that. Oh no, that. And then they look at you and they thank you, because that's the thing they needed to hear. So the analytical mind would then go, oh, okay, I'm harsh then, and form an identity out of it called harshness. And so the game goes on and the dance goes on. We are the Lord of the dance, but for when we can't see it.
You've quietened us all down, Dave. Thank you.
Can I just say, recently, over the past couple of years, I've had a few problems, some mental pressures, and I've been getting so much better recently. About 2 weeks ago, I bumped into one of the triggers that caused a lot of my anxiety, and I went into a big, massive panic attack. And I had lots of anxiety, but it dissipated so much quicker than when I had it before. And I reached the stage, because I've been looking into the understanding of how our mind and how everything works, and listening to Dave talk about the I, the self, who we are, the commentator in the mind, and to me, it reached back where, because I had this anxiety attack, suddenly that had let in all sorts of negative thoughts, which hadn't entered me for about 6 months or so, hadn't entered my mind. Now, as soon as negative thoughts came through, a year or so ago, I would have been totally swamped by those thoughts, and all negative these things, it's almost as if I had two of me inside of my mind. And one part of me was looking and saying, "It's always making things. That's not correct, right? That shouldn't be happening." So the other side was actually observing all this negativity, which was affecting me all the way down. And because of that, it's almost like I was able to let that side triumph over the negativity, and that was able to let that negativity all go again, because I put my strength or whatever, or my positivity into that side of me, which now what that side is, whether that was wisdom, whether that's I, whether that's mind, it fascinates me what goes on inside of who we actually are, and I think self-awareness is such an amazing thing. I think everybody has a different idea of exactly who they are. Okay, we know we have an ego and other things, but what makes up our personality? And ego, we know is innate wisdom, and I think it's just being able to step from one to the other, and the more that you can live in that innate wisdom, and that can conquer all sorts of problems. It's just what we have inside our heads, I think, is very important, and everybody has a different view, and that's because we're probably all different, like our own perspectives. In that respect, I mean, we're all slightly different, but at the same time, there is the wisdom, the personal mind, and other things, egos, and all sorts of other things. I just want to put that in, but it was interesting for me that I could, one part of me could actually see what was happening to the other part of me, and was able to then overpower the part that I wanted to. So it was looking at those things going on as well. So overall, there was something that above it all. Just wanted to say that's what I've got listening to Dave there. That's reminded me of that incident that we were. And I still get it goes so much quicker as well, which wouldn't have happened when I would have been overwhelmed.
Trevor,
So, yes.
is it? I'm sorry, I'm finding it really hard to hear you. I don't know if anybody else is. I don't know. There's a really poor connection, and it could just be me, but I didn't want people to miss what you're saying. But can you just raise your hand if it's a bit difficult?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, yeah. So that's probably a good time to stop there anyway. But I'm not sure why that is. I'll look at my audio. Thank you.
Thanks, Trevor. I mean, I think I got most of what you were saying, but it was becoming too broken up. So I didn't want you to carry on and none of us be able to hear what you're saying, but your points are fabulous. So Ian has to go in a couple of minutes. So I wanted to just invite him to say sort of goodbye.
Thanks, Sue. Yeah, my apologies. I on my way down here yesterday, I had to come by car because the trains were on strike, and then my car broke down on the motorway.
Oh no!
So I ended up calling out the RAC twice, and what should have been a 3.5 hour trip was about an 8 hour trip altogether. So I need to go and retrieve my car and see whether they fixed it. But it was a nice example of how stuff can happen, and we can be disturbed by it or not. Because I realised that I actually quite enjoyed the whole thing. I had the radio on. I was listening to the cricket on the radio, and it was a nice day. So I was sat on a grassy bank getting some sunshine, and there was a time when I could have been feeling stressed about that or regretting my decision to drive or all the rest of it. But it was interesting to see, if you don't add anything to it, it's just another experience, and it's just as rich as anything else. Like Dave was saying, the extraordinary and the ordinary. And I had this lovely conversation with the RAC guy while he was towing my car away. He was such a nice guy, and he offered to phone the garage for me, and he said, "Would you like me to? Maybe they'll have a spare car they can lend you. Do you want me to fix that up for you?" I said, "Oh, sure." And it was just a nice example of how when you're sitting in right relation to yourself, it seems like the world is in right relation to you as well. You know, that's how it looks to me. People show up as being helpful and friendly, and what you need, you know, is given to you. And there is a kind of effortless ease that tends to be a kind of indicator that we're in right relation to ourselves. So I just wanted to mention that. But yeah, sorry I have to run. Thanks for inviting me, and apologies for being the invisible man.
No.
Well, it's been a pleasure, especially, I mean, given that you had that wonderful day, and now you've chosen to come on the call.
That's all right.
Compete with your wonderful day.
Looking forward to seeing hopefully many of you in November at the live event. Like Dave, I still have a preference for meeting people live. So I hope if any of you can make it, that I'll get to see you there. I know it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah, have yourselves a lovely weekend. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ian.
And goodbye.
Bye.
You know, I was laughing at myself just then because because Ian wasn't on thing, when he was talking, I was staring at that blank square on my screen as if he was. I thought, oh, it's much rude not to look at someone who's talking. Oh dear. So how's everybody doing? Anyone want to chip in?
I think Mandy, does Mandy want to say something?
Yeah,
Unmute yourself, Mandy.
There you go. Am I clear? Is it?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I was about to speak and then I got really distracted by a magpie pecking away at a dead rat in the garden. So I'll sort that in a minute. I know I don't. I just wanted to say that I've loved this conversation, and it just feels like I'm being reminded over and over again by everybody that's speaking, just how it works. And what came to mind was sort of the listening and being present combination, because I think quite often we think we're listening and if we're not present. And what came to mind was my relationship with my mum. When we talk, the best time for her to talk is 6 o'clock in the evening, so that's when I'd phone her. And that's also time to make dinner. So it made sense to me to talk to her whilst I was making dinner. Or not even talk to her, listen to her, because she talks a lot. And this went on for a ridiculously long time. And it was, you know, the feeling that came with that was one of kind of irritation and busyness, until it just came to me one day, just listen to her without doing anything else. And the relationship changed immediately. And now I really look forward to that kind of half an hour, 45-minute space where I'm truly present with her. So before I was listening, but from a distracted place. And I think we do that more and more nowadays. I mean, a lot of people like to have conversations with people by phone when they're in their car. And you can tell immediately that they can't be present, fully present with you if they're driving at the same time. And I'm not saying that we can't multitask sometimes, but I think that's where I know if there's a feeling of kind of busyness or irritation or stress, it's because I'm not truly present. So a lesson for me from this morning is just slow down. And I love the supermarket analogy as well. My trips to the supermarket used to be, it's about a 10-minute walk. Head down, that was a good time to think. Whereas now I'm looking, it's like 360 degrees, and what I'm seeing is just fabulous, and the connections are wonderful. So thank you for this morning. I just feel like I've been reminded again, and I'm going to need reminding for life, I'm sure. But it's been really helpful, so thank you.
Oh, it's lovely, Mandy. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Does anyone have any questions about anything? I mean, we've come in on that topic, which I think is, well, it's certainly near and dear to my heart in a way, because I think the way that Ian and Dave spoke to that, really was clear. There was a lot of clarity for me in that. And that's, again, a great reminder of it isn't looking for something. It's just being sort of becoming more super aware that you're already there, and it's just you take yourself off on these little diversionary tracks, and that's all right. It's just you don't have to be thinking about, oh, I'm on a diversionary track, what does this mean? So for that reminder that it's going to happen, I think. I mean, certainly I feel it's in my, you've just said for life, and I think I'm with you on that, Mandy. But that's, if it's anything like the journey so far, that's fabulous. I don't want this to stop. It couldn't anyway, but I can't imagine thinking, well, that's it now, I've got it, good, right, I'll just get on, carry on and live life, as if life was separate to all of this. So yes, but we're not tied to a topic. It's whatever comes to mind for people, because there are, it can set off a new thought at any time. And I think what I love about no rules, and I know that I have a shocking reputation for banishing time when we have something like the Space for Connection. There is no time at Space for Connection. I love the freedom. I love the freedom, that's the potential for freedom that we have, but just to speak to each other. Yeah, so I just want to say that.
Can I say something on that very last bit that you said? I love the potential for freedom that we have just to speak to each other. There's gold in there.
Mm.
There is this paradox that we can get hooked on the drug of the journey, and that can make you resist the heaven that's already present. So the little mind, the ego, will keep you striving, because it has a place in that. It has a role in that. There's something for it to do if it's going to keep you convinced that there's somewhere else to be, some more to do, other ways, deeper, all of that, which is all common language in this community, deepening your understanding, deepening your grounding. It's all very normal. But my kids are one of my best barometers for I don't know. My kids are one of my best barometers for whatever. And they came up with this morning. When you die, it's the start of a new life in heaven. Wisdom is the language of the soul, and good ideas are the practice of the mind. For a 9 and 11-year-old, I thought it was quite cool, really. But other than just wanting to brag mercilessly about my children, which I'm fairly well known for doing, so I'm good with that. There's some real wisdom in that. There's a real sobriety in what they're pointing at. So when they were talking about death in that context, we'd been talking about the character, the persona of I. And I'll go back to what Trevor said and to what Mandy said. Trevor was describing so beautifully about these negative thoughts, but there was something there. There was an awareness, and it was awareness that triumphed, and awareness absorbed the negative thoughts, and they became thoughts, part of the landscape of how we live out our lives. And there's a real sobriety in that for me, of not wanting to get into the trap of avoiding negativity. Oh, I don't want a negative thought. Oh no, that'll woe is me. That just ends up like, Muji has a beautiful way of describing this, that the person has an odor or a fragrance. It's like, oh, I don't want to be negative. It's like, well, you're going to have thought and conditioning and misunderstanding, habits, and lots of stuff will have you interpret that as negative, but they're just thought, divine thoughts. That's all they are. And so the more we have the practical experience through realization of that being true for us, not that we learn it or believe it or value it or anything like that. To me, it's the experience. And that was kind of one of the fun things, I think, this morning was going and finding the feeling and finding the intelligence in the feeling and watching people realize stuff and see it differently and seeing that coming through on the camera, you know, versus trying to describe it. So that's why I love the essence of Viva, the spirit of life. Let's find that in each moment. And so that, Sue, picking up on what you said, that becomes, I guess, the joy of being alive, the experience of let's go find it. But not oh, let's go and find it. I'm gonna go and find that bloody peace of mind again. You know, it's like, you know, where is it now? Well, it's here. Oh, found it again. Oh, found it again. Oh, found it again. And you know, I'm occasionally sensitive to the fact that it doesn't always look like that. And if you're in a thought storm or the negativity and the correction hasn't occurred, you know, when you cut yourself, it hurts. It does. It actually only hurts when the thought arrives, but you know, it hurts. And when you see it, you worry. It's like, wow, is that going to heal? That's a very real experience for all humans. We've all had many contextually different examples of that, of seeing that, you know, there isn't a pipeline of clients or people that we think we can work with. So where's the money going to come from that we need for our homes, for our families? And it's very easy to become dismissive of that and go, oh, none of that matters to me anymore because I live on a hillside and I understand the principles. And it's like, well, that's just not my experience. My experience is I do get concerned and stuff, like when I cut myself. But just gradually, inch by inch, thought by thought, moment by moment, I see healing. So I'm just less likely to fiddle with it. You know, I do put plasters on, but I don't have the habit anymore, which I used to have, of going, I wonder if it's healing. Oh, okay. Should have just, you know, I remember my nan, bless her soul, saying to me, just leave it alone. You leave it. Oh, I just want to check. I just want to check that I'm enlightened. Bear with me. I'll just have a look. See if I can be a bit more grounded, a bit deeper, you know, and I can't remember whether it's a Rumi thing or a Buddha thing or whatever, but somebody way wise, you know, talks about if we could just see the consciousness that we are, we could see that. If you could see your healing potential, regardless of what state you think you're in or any of that jive, if you could really be present with that, know that, in the same way that if I go, oh, Sheila will go, what? Sorry? Yeah, me? If you knew you were consciousness in the same way you know your name, although you're now the Sheila, aren't you?
Obviously.
Yeah. But if we really knew that and we were present to that and we saw the evidential reality of that for each of us in each given moment, then everything shifts, everything changes. Every experience we have, every person we meet, every time we speak that into the world. And words are powerful. Don't let anybody convince us they're not. Particularly when they're spoken as truth. You know, Jesus healed with words alone. He walked and he healed through presence of God incarnate. Simple. Beautiful. Simple. And each of us are awake to that. Can you imagine any greater gift to share with anyone? You know, people worry about their value or, you know, should I charge for this? Can you imagine any greater gift? You know, whether you're charging or not charging, it's irrelevant, really. I think it is an issue for people. Like everywhere you go, that's what you're bringing to the world. kind of whether you think you are or you think you're not. It really doesn't matter that much. You're running down the mile at the end of the marathon. It is the home stretch. You're seeing it. Celebrate that. The joy of being that in life. That's it's more gift than I can imagine. You know, I was going to say it's better than a Ferrari, but I really would quite like a Ferrari, so I don't know.
Well, you can give the Dave a Ferrari.
Yeah, the Dave wants one.
Yeah, I think he does. Yeah, I'm good with that.
We can heal you if you stay on this call long enough.
Yeah.
Get a smart car.
Yeah.
Save the planet.
Yeah. Next lifetime.
So one of the when you were talking earlier about, you know, that when you speak, the self is speaking, but whatever comes into form then is open, to interpretation and also analysis, and that's certainly by us, but and also by other people. But once it's out there, there's what do we know about what other people are thinking or doing or interpreting? We're going back to us. That to me is the crux of living in the past. It isn't being present, it's living in the past, because everything that's in form is already in the past.
Yeah.
There is only this, and now that's in the past. And so we can wake up to where our attention is, and that's being present. And then when we're present, the truth is more clear to us, or clearer to us, and more visible to us. And I love the example Mandy gave. You know, me too. And I think hasn't everybody had that example of they're driving on their common route, and they say, "Oh, someone put a sign up." Oh, I mean, I should only speak for me. And Peter says, "Yeah, about 8 years ago." And you think, no, you're wrong. That's new. And then you get into, you know, I have to be right. No, I'm joking. But it's that kind of experience. And then being in the garden and not hearing the birds versus being in the garden and hearing the birds. It's a different experience. And it's not like I'm going out to garden to listen to birds. But when you're present, it has a different, I don't know, you said 360 degrees, and I love that. And I remember hearing when I used to work with Dean, he would often talk about, you know, you go from 2D to 3D or whatever. And I think, yeah. But when it happens, there's no mistaking it. It isn't a thought. It isn't a thought. It's an experience. So, yeah, but the present versus living in the past is really, really very straightforward. If you see it. And, of course, yeah, we're going to be past and present, past and present, past and present. It seems to me. And that's all right. Couldn't not be all right, because it is just what it is.
Well, yeah, because even the past is being created in the present. Yeah. So it's all good. But I love what you're pointing at there, Sue. That's just so powerful. You've got two things. You've got awareness, and then you've got choice.
Mm.
You know, the moment you become aware, oh, hang on, yeah, I'm preoccupied with something that was. Oh, I could just not do that. And it's only when you see that, you know, everything else is just leading up to seeing that. Then you wake up to it. Oh yeah. That's just me worrying about that. Well, that's fine.
And I was speaking to Katja. I don't think she'll mind me just saying this point, that she was. We were talking about preoccupation a bit, and I get very preoccupied with things. And she said that she was talking to somebody and that she'd been feeling very full and very busy. And this person had pointed out to her, you know, everything you're talking about sounds fantastic. And she realized that her preoccupation was with the good things. So it's not that we're trying to fight off the bogeyman of the bad things. We can be really preoccupied with future plans, with inspirational ideas, but we begin to think, oh, how can I bring it into being? And we lose it in the same way. So the thing is not to be trying to avoid anything or trying to stop anything or shut the door quickly so something doesn't come in to our minds. It's just that awareness again will just clean it up. We just, Mandy said it, I think, who said about slowing down? Was it Gillian? Somebody said about, you know, it reminded, it was Mandy about slowing down.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's great to have a reminder. Oh yeah, just slow down. We're not in this on our own, are we? We're not. I'm not just the Sue. That's the mirage of feeling, oh, I'm just on my own.
Yeah.
Whereas if I can see beyond that, the reminders are everywhere. But the Sue, she's trying really hard to find the reminders.
Well, I was trying to. Can you hear me?
Yes, great.
I was trying to add something to that, so then I missed bits in between because I was thinking, oh, I was going to say about the butterflies in the garden. And it's so easy to then get distracted by, when am I going to fit that in?
Yeah, yeah.
So when you are out in the garden and you are present, I find there's more butterflies, which might just be because I've noticed more butterflies. Or they just turn up.
Yeah.
Anyway, carry on.
But it's easier to take those things for granted in a way, isn't it? And then there's the separation again. Oh, that's just what goes on in my garden. I mean, isn't it extraordinary? If you take the ordinary and see it, then it is suddenly utterly extraordinary. I mean, a butterfly or a petal off, and I don't want to go too far off in that, but when we're on holiday, we tend to if we're in a hot country and have different flowers, we get really mesmerised sometimes by the sheer exuberance of the flowers there. They're different. So we think, oh, look at that. And I was like, God, every part of that is absolutely extraordinary. And then the people living in that country, they're walking past and I don't know, they go from not noticing to having this sense that I've got and beyond. But how we fritter away, if you like, the extraordinariness that's around us with our own preoccupations. And it's not right and it's not wrong. It just seems to be quite a common experience. And I've learned to be, I'm much kinder to the Sue now, much more compassionate. And she kind of, I think she thrives on that. And I don't even know who this other I is, this big. So I've now got two the Sues. One the Sue is nice to the others. Anyway, forget it.
So I'm going to be the one that's mindful of time here.
Well, I don't know why it has to be you. I can look at my... Oh, and let me just remind you, it's 24 minutes past 10, Sheila.
Just say we'll be bringing... So it's time to sort of bring it to a close, being mindful and respectful of everybody's time. And I know some people don't like to skip off because it might look rude, blah, blah, blah. We have that sort of thinking. So is there anybody want to ask a question or add a quick comment or anything at all before we say hasta pronto? See you at Viva in Spain, all being well.
Just to say thanks very much.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thanks to everyone for coming.
Yeah. It wouldn't be this without you all being here, of course.
Just a quick comment. Dave, you made a reference to music. And, hang on, it's gone. And one of the really important things is that we haven't really got onto yet. We've done a lot of meet the speaker and helping people to get a sense of who's going to be there, and it's possibly come across as a little bit 4-letter word dull. Not because the interviews were dull, but because what we haven't begun to do as well is to surround that with the feeling of the music and the feeling of the light and the fun and the afternoons where people are going to have ample time to make those connections and sit with people or not. There's not, again, there are no rules, but so, please watch this space. We hope that you've enjoyed being able to meet the speakers, but I mean, for me, this is tons better, to listen to you, Dave, at this level, listen to Ian, and then have people, bring in their own thoughts and little examples. It's fabulous to me. And so the feel for this was like, well, this is what it's going to be like, but better. It's going to be more 3D, obviously, because for us that I don't know how to speak about it really, but the fine balance between joy, being joyous, but also having that joy nourish us. Well, of course it does anyway, but balancing between, what we bring in the form with forethought, balanced alongside what happens in the moment as joy rises, and joy meets joy, and truth meets truth, and all of that. And so that's quite hard to, if you like, encapsulate. And we're not. We wondered if we were really IT wizards, we could have, produced some real whizzy kind of like music and scenes from Spain and Fiesta. But, think Fiesta too. Think mountains, think, walking along the beach. And please, if you know anybody that hasn't yet come across this, we'd be very appreciative if you shared it with people, and they want to talk to us. We're open to it. And just please come if you can. This is obviously our passion.
It's about celebrating life, isn't it? Tapping into the richness of life is the tagline, and that's truly the vision that we have for Viva, is that people will be coming together and hanging out and enjoying life, really, and I think Dave was saying earlier on, great if we can talk principles and keep pointing in that direction, fantastic. And that's obviously the focal point of Viva. But it's also about really just enjoying life and hanging out and having a good time. And some of you on this call have experienced Albia, so you know what it's like, and some of you haven't yet. So yeah, so come back for more. And I'm sitting here waiting for all of you to come over and join Mark and I, and have a fabulous time together. So yeah, do you want to finish off, Sue?
Well, only to thank people, and especially Dave and Ian, because we've already called on your time, so we do appreciate this. And you realise it's every Saturday morning now.
That would be good.
I didn't mention that. So I'm going to leave it for Dave actually to sign off, because I've really, really enjoyed listening to you, Dave.
Absolutely.
And I haven't had that opportunity so often, so this has been fabulous. And so I'm going to thank everybody for coming, and if you would you like to close?
Yeah, the thing that just occurred to me, first of all, thank you everyone for spending this time. I've loved it. It's been brilliant. I knew it would, and it is. There really is this magic at work, and the principles is such a beautiful way of looking at that, of examining it and seeing it coming alive for us in a moment. And I think it's kind of good to, I don't know, pay respect to that. It's very easy to get hung up on the us part, if you like, the Dave, the Sue, the Sheila, the whoever, and that's all fine, but it's kind of, it really is a thank the principles, or thank Sid, or thank God for what's occurring here, and how we're getting to celebrate something that I think is very transformative, very healing, and very evolutionary for us as a species. And I really, that's huge humility and respect for being part of that, and just being able to witness it, and knowing that I couldn't shag it up even if I tried. So there's massive release in that. It's easy to get quite serious about all this jive. It's we really do get the pleasure of being serious and just hanging out in it at the same time, and it's such a joy. So thank you all.
Okay, well, thank you again, everybody, and hopefully we'll all meet soon, and
happy weekend.
Have a lovely weekend. Yeah, cheerio then.